Hey, it's Kyle here, and I am very excited to review episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Season 2 of Andor. This review will include spoilers, so if you haven't watched these episodes yet, please stop watching this review, go watch the episodes, and then come back and watch my review. So with that spoiler warning out of the way, let's get started talking about some amazing episodes of Andor. And like I've been doing so far for this season, since they're releasing episodes in these 3-episode batches, instead of trying to talk about each episode individually, I'm just going to kind of talk about the story arc in general and not really try to break it down episode versus episode. So I think this is the episode arc like everybody for Andor is super excited about. When they announced how they were going to do the episodes, 3 episodes, and each one would be a year, everybody kind of did the math and realized 7, 8, and 9 would probably be the one that would center around Gorman and the Gorman Massacre and Mon Mothma's speech in the Imperial Senate, which I think were the Gorman Massacre and that speech were probably the two marquee moments that everybody was super excited about to see how Andor would depict those moments. And I'll say, at least for me, I was not disappointed. Absolutely loved it. This is definitely probably my favorite 3-episode batch of Season 2. And for sure, some of my favorite moments in Andor in general. This was an amazing episode story arc. Like most of Andor, not the most cheerful stuff, some very depressing moments. Some moments that were kind of hard to watch, but so amazingly well done, so well written, so well acted. Everything was just absolutely amazing about this arc. Loved it so much. And I think a lot of this 3-episode arc in some ways kind of boils down to loss of control for a lot of these characters. So when we start off in episode 7, and Messenger and Willem has come to Yavin. We find out Cassian and Bix have kind of settled on the Yavin base. And they're now a part of that rebel cell. And Willem's come and sit by Luthen to send Cassian on a new mission. And it's clear Cassian is really no longer exclusively Luthen's agent. He's not really working for him directly anymore. And some of the things that Willem was kind of saying, it almost felt like, not necessarily that Luthen was opposed to Yavin, but I almost feel like Luthen was realizing, maybe for the first time for this entire thing of building up this rebellion, he's no longer in control. There's other people also calling the shots anymore. He's not the only game in town. He's not able to pull all the strings and make all the various rebel factions kind of do what he wants to do. They've kind of outgrown him. I think this is part of he's kind of been trying to build him to this, but once he gets to this point, you almost feel like he has this I'm kind of missing being the Grand Master and being in control and being able to direct everybody to do what I want them to do. And almost sending Cassian on this mission as a way to kind of bring back maybe his most faithful agent. And you can see Cassian struggling with this where he's presented this mission hey, there's a chance to assassinate Deidre. This is the person that started all this, did all this horrific things on Ferrix. Bix was tortured on her orders. So much evil stuff happened because of Deidre. This is your chance to get revenge, get justice, go back to Gorman and assassinate Deidre. And you tell he doesn't want to, but at the end, I think it's just too much of a temptation for Cassian not to pass up. And so he goes on this mission. I should say everything in Yavin, the setting was really cool. I enjoyed Cassian's little, or I should say Cassian and Bix, their little jungle resort. I want to know how they got the nicest digs. It looked like everybody else was living in tents and stuff, and they had a really nice little private house they've kind of built in the jungle. Very cool setting. If anything, if any two characters deserve the right to have a nice housing in a rebel base, I think it's definitely Cassian and Bix. But that was a really cool setup. And I love the look we got at the Yavin base. Everything is definitely becoming more of an official rebel base. It's not quite where we see it at Rogue One and A New Hope. So you can tell they still have a couple more years to build up to get it to that. Even though a lot of uniforms that the rebels were wearing, you can tell it's still kind of a little bit more informal. They're not as official looking as we see in Rogue One. So they're kind of slowly making that transition from these various individual rebel units that are not organized, have no uniforms. Now they're starting to kind of get uniforms, starting to have ranks. And then by the time we get to Rogue One and A New Hope, they're really more of an official military outfit and rebel movement and not just, kind of an amateur group anymore. So I'm really glad we got to see this stuff on Yavin, but really the bulk of this story arc is built around episode 8, the Gorman Massacre, and 9, Mon Mothma's speech. So for the Gorman Massacre and just kind of going into everything in that storyline, I was fascinated by Cyril and Deidre's kind of story arc in this one. And again, I think both these characters are somewhat struggling with the loss of control. Cyril's the one that's having this big moment, almost actually his conscience is coming back to him. So I think he's kind of struggling on a couple fronts. One, he's definitely always been all about order and everybody following the rules. And, if everything just does that, follows the Empire's rules, everything will be great. All these troublemakers are the ones that are, breaking the rules and causing all this chaos. If they just would follow the rules, everything would be okay. And so I think that's why he's always been so willing to go along with the Empire. He thought that's what this group that was setting up this law and order foundation, if everybody just bought in, it would be a perfect society. But now, as he's went through a year of being kind of a double agent in Gorman, he's begun to realize that this is not what the Empire is all about. They don't really care about law and order. What they care about is getting what they want. And if everybody following the rules gets the Empire what they want, they're all good about that. But if the Empire has to break their own rules to get what they want, that's what they're going to do. I think that's what Cyril's beginning to realize. He's been, involved with the Gorman Front now as an agent for a year. I think he's become to realize, this is not a violent group. This is not a group this is not a group that's about chaos and trying to destroy society. They're just there trying to protect their own rights at their home. It's clear after a year the Gormans have not been engaged in a full-scale insurgency, and the Empire is still having to stage their own bombings and stuff to kind of get the public and the rest of the galaxy to be anti-Gorman. And I think, Cyril's kind of realized, these Gormans are not really these bad, and they're not really breaking the rules, and the Empire is the one that's just breaking rule after rule after rule, where the Empire is breaking rule after rule after rule just to accomplish their goals. And you can tell Cyril's really confused, what is the Empire trying to do? I don't get, why are they sowing chaos here? What is going on? And when we reach the point where Cyril finally finds out what's going on, where Deidre has to confess to him, this has been planned. We just wanted the Gormans to fight back so the Empire could take this planet because there's a rock in the ground that the Empire really needs. You can tell that breaks Cyril. That the Empire was not concerned about bringing law and order and imperial prosperity to Gorman. They could care less. They want the Gormans gone so they can mine this planet, and that completely shatters Cyril's worldview. At the same time, I don't know if it's initially completely that this is what's kind of destroying Cyril's confidence in the Empire so much. I think part of it's also that he's not in the know. I kind of wonder, if from the very beginning when Cyril goes to Gorman, if he'd been read into the full program, hey, this is why we're doing this. This rock is essential to imperial security, and if we get this rock, we'll be able to bring peace and law and order to the entire galaxy. But the Gormans are going to, tough luck for the Gormans. They're going to have to be sacrificed so the rest of the galaxy gets order. I can have been presented to Cyril that way. I think he might have been bought into this entire scenario. But the fact that he didn't know what was going on, he is able to figure out what y'all told me while we were doing this. This is clearly not the case. That's, I think, what messes with Cyril, knowing this is not right, and you've also been lying to me the entire time. I thought I was a valuable member of the team. I was a valuable person to the Empire, and y'all could clearly care less about me. Especially, even breaks him even more that his girlfriend hadn't told him all this stuff, and clearly she knew. She wasn't in the dark either. She knew this plan. I think it would even make him even more upset if he found out this was actually her plan. She was the one that presented this plan. Hey, we need to build up a rebel group so the Empire has somebody to fight and actually take Gorman from this rebel group and build them up. And, this is her idea. And I think that would have even made Cyril even more devastated. At the same time, you see Deidre, she's kind of struggling because I think it's a couple combinations of things. I think she had a feeling when she built up this rebel group, they would start fighting back, that they were probably actually a bad group, and you just needed a little instigation there, and they would be the evil rebels that she believed they were. But I think after a year, it's clear they're not the evil rebels that she thought they were. If they were, the Empire still would have to be staging attacks to make them look best. The Gorman Front would be doing all the fighting and killing that they need. The Empire would have to stage anything after that initial stuff. So I think she's, kind of the Gorman Front, they're not as bad as I thought. And I'm basically going to destroy their planet. Was this really the right thing to do? I think the thing that finally breaks her, and we see this moment where she's shaking from anger tears, everything. Every emotion's going through her. I think the fact that she's no longer in control. The entire time, this was her mission. She was in charge. And as it gets closer, now they've brought in a security expert. He's the one that's going to be doing stuff. And they kind of say, like, oh, you'll still be issuing orders, but you can even tell the way they're doing it. And when that guy shows up, hey, I'm in charge. You're just here to kind of say something, but like I'm the one that's really doing things now. And again, I actually realized I'm not as important to the Empire as I thought I was. I'm now being discarded for the next person to do their job, and they could care less about me anymore. And they're just kind of patting me on the shoulder. Hey, good job. Now get out of the way so this other person can actually do the real work. Again, another character struggling with the loss of control. So everything about how the Gorman massacre was staged, where basically the Empire was doing everything they could to get the Gormans to make the first attack against the Empire. They won't do it, so eventually they have to use an Imperial sniper to start killing Imperials and Gormans in the square to kind of start the riot, so then the Empire can crack down and basically wipe out the Gormans. Was such a amazingly well thought out scenario, but so depressing to watch. It's one of those things you're like, it's not a fun watch, but the way that action was written, the concepts were all done, perfectly done. An amazing part of that episode. Everything that's Cassian's going through during this, where he's initially trying to assassinate Deidre still, but then he's going like, what's going on? And he's trying to fight back at a certain point to help the Gormans, but he realized like, this is bad. We need to get everybody out here. They're going to get wiped out. This is awful. Seeing Cassian go through that realization is something, because like, entire time he's been saying like, we've been fighting a war. I think when he's here in Gorman, he realizes, oh, the war has started. We're at that point now. This is war now. It's no longer the behind the scenes spycraft I've been doing. This is actual war. It's finally arrived. The moment where Cyril spots Cassian is absolutely amazing. I was like, oh, we finally got it. And that's the thing. It makes him snap, like all the rage that's been built up against his anger against the Empire, against Deidre, he lets it loose on Cassian, this guy he's been obsessing about, and in some ways he's blamed, like everything that's went wrong in his life, he's kind of put on Cassian, and now Cassian's in front of him, and they have this brutal fight. And I love that moment where Cassian goes like, who are you? Because he clearly, for Cyril, Cassian is the most important person in his life by far. For Cassian, he's completely forgot about Cyril. He barely even was aware he existed, and now he's just a complete afterthought. He hasn't thought about him once. And I think that even crushes Cyril even more. And right when that moment happens, Cyril's shot. I'm going to assume he's dead, because in Star Wars, you can never say somebody's dead unless you actually see the body. So we didn't really see him on the ground with like a huge amount of blood, seeping out of his head, but we did see him on the ground the way he was shot. I'm assuming he's dead, but in Star Wars you can never say never. But everything with the Gorman massacre was just amazingly well done. And of course, at the end of the episode, we get this little introduction to how Cassian gets K2. That a K2 droid is kind of destroyed during the Gorman massacre. Cassian kind of takes him without it. He's like, hey, this little droid, this could be valuable to the Rebel Alliance for being able to do something with it. So we get that little intro like, hey, this is how K2 came into Cassian's life, which I thought was neat. But then to go to episode 9, which I was so excited about to see Mon Mothma in action in the Senate. And so this really completely revolves around Coruscant, the Senate, and everything that was built in to make Mon Mothma's speech possible, from Bail Organa to like arranging parliamentary procedure so Mon Mothma can get time to speech when she was not supposed to be able to speak. Mon Mothma practicing her speech the day leading up to it, constantly rewriting it, practicing it in the square, just figuring out how can I practice the speech, especially when all the rooms I'm in are probably bugged, so I can't really read it out loud. How do I practice the speech? Because I know this is the most important speech, not only my life, but maybe the entire galaxy. Because if I mess this up, the speech that's meant to launch the rebellion will fail, and who knows what that will mean for the rebellion and the fight against the Empire. All the spycraft in this episode where Mon Mothma finds out from Luthen, like, hey, my closest aide has actually been a spy for you for 2 years. Oh, and by the way, the team from Bail that's going to help you escape, don't trust them. There's actually an Imperial agent in there. Trust my guy. But then Mon Mothma knows, like, hey, the last time one of my friends went in a ride with one of your agents, that person ended up dead. Are you just going to try to kill me once the speech is over so I don't flip on you? Everything going on that. Cassian helping Mon Mothma escape. Mon Mothma's driver being shot, I should say, as they're doing the escape. Everything that went into that was perfection. That entire scene for me could have been an entire 3-episode block in itself, but then I'm also a political science nerd and I love stuff with seeing Mon Mothma in action, the Imperial Senate. Just an amazing way to kind of present that moment. And Genevieve, her portrayal of Mom Moth in this episode was absolutely amazing. Her speech was amazing. Just perfection. This episode was so well done. Was blown away by this story arc. Thought it was absolutely amazing. And I'm kind of interested to see, what are we going to do with this last 3 episodes? I have a feeling, sadly, that a lot of the characters that we've come to, love over the course of the series are not going to make it. Obviously, we know Cassian makes it. We know Mon Mothma makes it. But what's going to happen with Luthen? Bix, who basically left Cassian because I actually realized I need to leave Cassian so he stays with the rebellion, and that's more important than our relationship. What's going to happen with Bix? There's so many people. I'm afraid we're going to lose a lot of people. These last 3 episodes might be so crushing. So let me know, what did you think about episodes 7, 8, 9, and what are your hopes and fears about the last 3 episodes of Andor? And I'm so sad that Andor is coming to a close. That's the other thing. We're releasing all these episodes and these 3 episode blocks. Season 2 just flown by, and it's basically nearly over, and it's going to be sad when it's over because we know this is all the Andor content we're going to get. So don't miss it when it's gone, but it's been amazing while we've had it. So again, if you like this review, please hit the like button. If you have yet, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and may the Force be with you.